How many know Jai Radha Madhava, this song? Okay.
It's recorded. It goes into the melody.
How many don't know the song? How many can't understand what I'm saying? I speak Brooklynese. Shrine is a different language. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Imade Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namne Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Imade Bhaktivedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Asyatyadesarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Asyatyadesarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Budaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Jaramani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesh Nivadi Pasvati. Only one class.
We have a children's room at the back, so if the children are unsettled, you can take them around to the kids' rooms.
Man, the class is even starting at this point. I haven't even said something, someone's crying already. So I'm going to read from a book called the Bhagavad Gita. Who has heard of the Bhagavad Gita before? So our philosophy is that there is a supreme God, supreme personality of Godhead. So that's all right. But the problem is it's not us. So that's the problem for a lot of people. People don't mind if there's a God, but they would like it to be themselves. Therefore, nowadays in the material world, they have so many different movies about superheroes. Because we can't be, basically if we can pay the rent and provide some food, we're a superhero in the house. But people would like to be more of a superhero than they are presently. So they like to imagine that there is some way or some people that have become superheroes and have mystic powers and can fly and pick up things we can't pick up. And so we try to imagine while we're watching these things that that's us, like a dream. In a dream you can practically do anything and no one notices. That's one of the problems, no one notices. But at least you can imagine that you become a superhero. Or nowadays sometimes people want to become super villains. They don't like to be the hero, they want to be the villain. But unfortunately in our waking state, our so-called waking state, we're faced with the reality that we're not supervillains, nor are we superheroes. We can only jump 6 feet at the most. We can't jump over a mountain or anything. Nor can we pick up a mountain. But when we hear about there's a person who can do that, then some people are very happy about that, and some people are not very happy about that. So this book called Bhagavad Gita is meant to tell us about that person. His name is Krishna. You probably heard his name here somewhere. We're repeating it all the time. And the idea is that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, most of us, or all of us, we haven't personally met Krishna in the sense that we can't talk to him face to face and ask him how his family's doing and how was your trip here. No, we don't have that contact with Krishna. Therefore, it may be questionable how much we actually believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what to speak of the fact that he exists. That's like if I said I was madly in love with a woman, and then they say, oh really? Well, what's her name? I said, well, I don't really know her. Well, what does she look like? I haven't never seen her. Where does she live? I haven't the faintest idea. Does she have an email address? Well, I don't think so. There's no internet where they live. But I'm madly in love with her. Really? So when people say they love God, then you have to ask, which God do they love? Or what God do they love? Or who's God? What are the qualities? Where does he live? What has he said? What has he said? So, our definition of God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we're not talking just the controller of the universe, because even people think that there's a force that's controlling the universe. You have to become one with the force, whatever that is. Or one with love, whatever love is. So our conception is that God is simply a controller of everything, although that's also included within his repertoire, controlling everything. But that he's the all-attractive person. And what makes a person all-attractive? He really doesn't like the philosophy. You just say a little bit and you start crying. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashasviya jnana vairagyas chanam shana vaga hitinganaha. Our definition of God is that he's the source of everything. So being the source of everything, he's also the source of everything we find attractive. He's not an old man sitting on a throne with no face, and he has a scoreboard, because now he's replaced his IBM with an Apple. And some soul comes before him, and he presses a little button, and the scoreboard lights up with all the sinful and pious activities of that soul, and he says, sorry, looks really bad. And then he picks up the soul, and then he throws him into the burning fire. Puff. And all the angels crowd around and say, wow, did you see that one burn? Can you throw another one, God? That was pretty far out. It's getting boring around here. Just throw in a few so we have a little light, little fireworks going on here. And then some other soul comes before God. He presses the scoreboard and lights up, and it's all nice. God takes the little hand and shakes it. Hey, you did pretty good, kid. And then he gives him a little harp and horn. And he's playing, God is great, God is great. Wake up, God is great, God. And after some time, the little soul goes to God and says, my dear God, please, can you do me a favor? God says, yes. Can you throw me into the burning fire? Really? Why? He said, at least there's some rock music down there. Keep me awake. So we have different conceptions of God. But our conception of God is that He's the source of everything, including Aishvarya means all opulence. Aishvaryasya samagrasya, in full. In other words, He has unlimited beauty. Now we have some pictures of Krishna here. We may question, like here's a nice picture of Krishna looking at a parrot. So, quite a nice looking person. But as far as that picture, when I see it, I don't see unlimited beauty. It's a beautiful picture, but it's not unlimitedly beautiful. The parrots may see better than I do. They seem to be quite attracted to it. And unlimited wealth. Now, I've never checked God's bank balance. I don't know how much wealth He has. But that's one definition, that if He's the source of everything and He's controlling everything, He must have unlimited wealth. But I have no idea. I've read a book called the Krishna book, and it describes some of His opulence, but I have no personal experience. Now He's supposed to have unlimited strength, and there's activities of pastimes with Krishna, how He lifted Govardhan Hill with one little pinky, but I've been to Govardhan Hill, but I never saw Krishna lift it with one little pinky. And if He did, even He did that, well, maybe He was practicing more than everyone else. Govardhan Hill's a big hill, by the way. And He's supposed to have unlimited fame. Now, it's a fact. Most people talk about God. Either they believe in Him or don't believe in Him. But they don't. Most people don't talk about Krishna nowadays. And He's supposed to have unlimited renunciation. That I don't know either. I've never seen what He's renounced. But He's also supposed to have unlimited knowledge. So if He has unlimited knowledge, at least there's something we can test. We can see for ourselves what His knowledge is. Whether it's unlimited or not, we don't know. But if it's unlimited, it must be perfect, whatever He says. Therefore, we have this book called the Bhagavad Gita. Now, our claim is that Krishna, who spoke this Bhagavad Gita, He had perfect knowledge, and therefore everything in the Bhagavad Gita is perfect, in the sense that it's scientific. Now, a lot of the Bhagavad Gita, we can't test. It's beyond our capacity. Like Krishna explains how He creates the material world. Now, He doesn't give a video. Like nowadays, they usually put a video. When you buy a book, a lot of times they have a cassette or a video in it. Krishna didn't include a video when He spoke the Bhagavad Gita, because they didn't have any videos back then. But He does say things that are within our experience, that we can more or less judge whether this is actually perfect knowledge, better knowledge than anyone else has ever given before, and anyone else will give. So that we can see. So that's why we generally speak from the Bhagavad Gita, and we try to speak from the Bhagavad Gita in a way that at least I can understand it. Because if I can understand it, probably everyone else can understand it too. Therefore, in the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us some knowledge, which is better knowledge than any professor at any university it generally gives. There may be some exceptions, in the sense that some professors may even repeat the same knowledge. But there's no better knowledge than this knowledge, and nothing more relevant to us than this knowledge. So that knowledge is, I'll repeat the Sanskrit, and for those who don't know Sanskrit, I'll even give the English. And then I'll try to explain it. So Krishna says in this book, in the very beginning, His first instruction is Deno Svinyata Dehe Karmam Yoganam Jara Tata Dahantara Praptir Dhiryas Tatra Namuyati. That as the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, so similarly the soul will pass to another body at the time of death. The self-realized souls aren't bewildered by these changes. So in other words, our bodies are changing. I think most of us can admit that our bodies are not exactly the same as when we were 5 years old. Isn't that right? They've changed a little bit. Anyone's body has changed a little bit over the last 20 years? If not, if you have the same body, come and see me afterwards and tell me what you're seeing. But we ourselves who are within the body, we're the same person, just experiencing different material existences. According to the body we have different existences. Sometimes the body may be, just like today, it's a little cooler. Yesterday it was a little warmer. So our experience is somewhat different today than it was yesterday. But the person who's experiencing through this body and through our minds, of course, is the same person. We're not different from what we were yesterday, but our body is different and our experience is different. Therefore, the conclusion is, according to this instruction, the body may go through so many different changes, but it hasn't affected the soul, ourselves. We talk about soul, we don't talk about something flying around this room here right now. We're talking about our actual selves who are conscious, who are seeing through these eyes, we're hearing through these ears, we're speaking with this mouth, we're listening with our ears, we're touching wherever we're touching. It's the soul that's doing it, not the body. But it's doing it through the body. In other words, if we didn't have these eyes presently, we couldn't see. If we didn't have these ears, we couldn't hear. But that doesn't mean that the ears are hearing. But we're hearing through the ears. And we're seeing through the eyes. But what we're seeing is not exactly what's going on, because, number one, if we saw exactly what's taking place here, we'd realize we're not the body. We realize that we're eternal. And we realize, if everyone here realized that they were eternal, we wouldn't have anything to worry about. It would actually fulfill what they say in Australia: no worries, mate. She'll be right. Everyone would be right. And there wouldn't be any worries. Because after all, the main thing we're worrying about is having to leave our body. And the amazing thing is, the thing that we worry about the most is the thing that everyone is guaranteed to experience. It's 100%, I can guarantee you 100%. As I said yesterday in class, I study palmistry. Does anyone know palmistry here? So we'll give you a quick palmistry lesson. Anyone want to learn the ultimate, how you can predict everyone's future? You want to learn the palmistry? You get it right 100% of the time. How many want to learn palmistry here? Okay, that's enough. So everyone put up their hands. Okay, so here in your hand, this is my index finger, and this is my thumb, which most of us will have. And then there's a line here. You see this? You look at your palm. You have a line that goes from the middle of the index finger down. That's called your lifeline. Now you look at the beginning. Everyone has a beginning, right? And it goes down, 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 down. And what happens? What's that? It stops, right? It may go down here, which is rare, but it stops. So that's your future. You know what that means? Oh, we don't want to talk about that. Who knows what it means when the line stops? What's that? Yes, the body ends. We get another one. So that's fine. If you tell people that, they'll be right 100% of the time. Of course, no one will hire you as a palmist promise. That's not exactly what people want to hear. People think other people die, just like I said yesterday, that when Gandhi went to England, the reporters came to see him, and they said, "Sir," actually they told that was a different thing. When our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, went to London, they asked him, because he's from India, he was from India, they asked him, the reporters asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, because his name was also Swamiji, why is it that in India so many people are dying? Why is it that so many people are sick in India? What's the problem? So Prabhupada said, you're right. In India, so many people die, and so many people are sick. But I've been in London here for some time, and I've noticed people are dying here too. I've noticed people get sick here too. You have all these hospitals here, good hospitals, but they're all these big hospitals. So many people must be sick. So we've done a statistical analysis, and we found out that the death rate in India is 100%. Everyone dies in India. But we've also done an analysis in London. We found that it's the same amount, 100%. Everyone in London dies too. So what's the difference? Matter of fact, every living entity is dying. No one stays behind. So the question is, why is it that if we're eternal, we have to keep on changing these bodies? Is there any course at a university that explains why the eternal soul has to change his body? Has anyone ever taken a course in kindergarten or first grade or high school? Has anyone got a PhD in reincarnation? Maybe, I don't know. But the point is, what's the most important thing to us? Why do people, when they cross the street, look both ways? What are they trying to see? Why every step we're taking, we're making sure that our next step we won't fall into a hole. What are we afraid of? We're afraid of death. But if we're not going to die, then why should we be afraid of death? Of course, I'm accepting that you theoretically agree with me that the body is changing, but the soul is not changing. We ourselves are not changing. So isn't that amazing? That we're all eternal, and we're all thinking we're this body, and we're thinking that we're temporary, that when the body disappears and we disappear? And isn't most of the civilizations nowadays based on that assumption that we got to protect the body? I remember, which is not a very nice story, but it's a true story. When I was in London, in Soho Street, we have a center in Soho Street, downtown London, and one devotee came in, and he told me, because he was going to bloop, he was going to leave the movement, but he came in and he decided not to. So I asked him why. He said, I went out to the middle of Soho Street, and there were two homeless people living there, and they got into a quarrel. And one homeless person took from his leg, he took out this, not a knife, like a sword, and he killed the person. He punctured him many times with a sword, and then he walked away. Of course, no one chased him. And then a helicopter came. Now, this is a homeless person, probably had no money, wasn't doing any work, but the government sent a helicopter to try and save him. Now, if I called up the helicopter, I have to get to the temple on time. The government's not going to send a helicopter so I can go to the temple. They couldn't care. They think I was crazy. But if I called up the government, my dear sir, some homeless person has just been stabbed, you have to, get him to the hospital immediately. Then the helicopter would come at a great expense to the taxpayer. Because to preserve a life, they'll spend any amount of money. To give people spiritual knowledge, they'll think you're crazy. We're not going to spend money on this project. So the most dear thing to everyone is their body. And they'll do anything to maintain it. Because we say, why are you worshiping Krishna? People ask sometimes, why are you worshiping Krishna? Why are you worshiping anyone? You should worship yourself. And that is the mood of modern society. I mean, previously people had cameras, they take pictures of the animals, of the forest, and now you look, everyone's looking at themselves, taking pictures of themselves. Selfies, here I am. Here I am. So, we wake up in the morning, we look in the mirror, and we ask the mirror. Everyone asks the same question. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest of them all? And it's amazing. Everyone gets the same answer. You're looking at the greatest. This is your worshipful deity. Please, the mirror is telling us, please follow the scriptures and render unalloyed, uninterrupted service to this deity you're seeing in the mirror. And we become enlivened, we become enlightened. This is life, this is what it's meant for, to serve that deity. And therefore we follow these scriptures, even our scriptures. And if we're a little pious, then we take a shower. And we call that abhishek. We bathe the deity. Then we clothe the deity, we put on perfume or cologne on the deity. We feed the deity, and then we go out into the world to glorify our deity all over the world, to get devotees for our deity. So everyone, not only the Hare Krishnas, but everyone is a deity worshiper. The only question is which deity we're going to worship, that's all. Now we worship this body as the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Deity. We're going to follow its commandments, whatever it tells us to do. We're going to make a special effort. We may not be unalloyed devotees of our body, because sometimes we get deviated. We try to be sincere in our service, but sometimes it's not perfect. We're learning. And there's so many people to teach us how to become a better servant of your body. And your desires, how to fulfill all the desires that you have. It's difficult. One time I was in an airplane many years ago, with a man was sitting next to me, and he was telling me how much anxiety he was in. He was watching the movie while he was telling me that. And at that time you could smoke cigarettes on the airplane. He was smoking a cigarette. He was eating his meal and listening to rock music at the same time. In other words, his senses had so many demands he couldn't possibly fulfill them. He was still in anxiety. So although we try so hard, so sincerely to serve our senses and our desires, but everyone is feeling there's something more that we can do. Because the body's never satisfied. We may have the most wonderful food to offer you today, but tomorrow you'll probably be hungry too. We can't give you any food that will satisfy you for the rest of the week. Nor if you sleep tonight, the next night the body says, well, you slept enough last night, don't bother sleeping tonight. Now the body will make so many demands, we'll never be able to fulfill all of them. But we try hard. As a matter of fact, modern society is an attempt to create demands. Not only the body has demands like eating and sleeping, mating is there and defending is there, but modern society is not satisfied with that because you can't make much money from that. So some people want to make money from everyone, whatever that means, and so they've created demands out of nothing. And not only that, but because they have no idea how to properly live in a civilized society, they made everything so complicated. But the amazing thing is, although they made it more and more complicated, they're actually glorifying the fact that they made it complicated. And they're thinking that this is advancement. It's like if you want to touch your nose and you have intelligence, then you just go like this, you touch your nose. But if you have no intelligence, then you put your hand behind your neck I haven't done my yoga exercises today, by the way, so it's a little difficult. I'm not going to do it. So that's another way of trying to touch your nose, but it's not going to work very well. There's easier ways of doing it. Similarly, modern society, even to serve this body, because we're not against serving the body. We're not against, but it should be done in a simple way. Not that it requires all our effort just to get something to eat. When I grew up, well, I grew up in a neighborhood, practically all the ladies stayed at home and cooked. That was right after the dinosaurs left the planet. You know, they actually cleaned the house. They actually took care of children. Could you imagine how barbaric that is? Taking care of children, how primitive. And they actually, you know, there was no divorce. There was no one in my neighborhood, and we had a big neighborhood. I grew up in Brooklyn. There, my high school had probably more students than most colleges have. My high school had 10,000 students in it. We had my college had 40,000. So there's no small, and no one I knew in my neighborhood, even beyond my neighborhood, none of the fathers and mothers were divorced. They all lived happily or unhappily together. Not forever after. But there was no question of divorce. And nowadays, when I was in the airport distributing books, I'd ask, these ladies would come by with children all the time, by themselves, and I said, well, what does your husband do? She said, I don't have a husband. This is America. They didn't have husbands. That was old-fashioned. And not only that, but nowadays, everyone has to work. The father has to work, the husband has to work, the children have to work, the dog has to work. Everyone has to work, otherwise they can't pay the rent. They can't get any food. And they're proud of it, that now everyone is a chemical, electrical, physical, theoretical engineer. And if some lady has to stay at home and clean the house, then she's a domestic engineer. You have to be at least some kind of professional. And this is called advancement. Everyone's working, and no one is actually caring for each other. No one is cooking. No one is cleaning. You have to hire someone. The children, as Prabhupada said, from his experience, one boy is sitting at home, but he's a young child, his father is working at night, during the day, and he comes home late at night. And so one day the father comes home earlier, and the child turns to his mother and says, "Who's this man, Mom?" So that's so-called family life, but everyone is working so hard for. And how did it happen? How did it happen in such a way as that everyone has to work so hard just to eat? Because they've lost the clue how to live a civilized life. And if we tell you what it is, many people will find it controversial, even the most basic thing. That previously, people used to have bulls and cows, or in the Western world they used to have horses sometimes. And what they do, they plow the land. And when they plow the land, food grew. And the cow would give milk. And the milk was unpasteurized, unhomogenized. And the land didn't have any chemicals on it. There was no herbicides. There was no pesticides. There is no insecticides. And lately, they've added peoplecides. So none of that was on the land. There was actually, the food was healthy. It was easy to get, because now what they did is, when they decided to replace the bull and the cow by slaughtering them, they needed something to plow the land, and most people didn't volunteer for it. So they had to get a tractor. But tractors don't grow on trees. You have to manufacture them. So in order to manufacture a tractor, you need a factory. But in order to build a factory, you need another factory. In order to build the other factory, you have to get the raw materials, and you need machines and factories so that you can get the raw materials. You can get the raw material, and then you need transportation to bring the raw materials to the factories to manufacture all these machines. So you can get a tractor, so you can plow the land and plant the seeds with other machines and harvest them with other machines, and then other machines to transport them. And then lo and behold, you need a whole army and a whole manufacturing system for armaments. You call it defense, but actually it's to get unsolicited donations from other countries. My dear country, please give us your raw materials, please give us your oil and everything. We'll pay you with a piece of paper. And if you don't accept our piece of paper, well, we have all these nice planes to come over and encourage you to accept our piece of paper and give us all these donations of all your raw materials so we can build all these factories and machines and everything, so we can have a tractor, so we can plow the land, and we can get something to eat. And this is progress. We should be proud. And instead of this barbaric previous so-called economic system where you just had a cow and bull and they plow the land, you throw nice seeds on the land, they come up very easily, and there is enough for everyone to eat, including some of the insects and the animals. Everyone, there's so much to eat that no one minded if someone else took something to eat. And there was no chemicals, so the air was clean, the water was clean, the food was clean, the atmosphere was clean. So people think this is primitive. The food actually tasted like food. The water, you drank it, and it looked like water, it tasted like water. You didn't put a match to it and it exploded, like in some parts of the world. So this is called civilization. But then people think, what can I do? Then I won't be able to watch Netflix or all these other things and watch people kill each other for the food. How boring. Not only that, but, life would be so simple that we'd be bored. But people weren't bored because they actually had relationships with each other. They actually cared for each other. They actually served each other. The children weren't just expensive hobbies. To have children was an expensive hobby. And one of the reasons why people used to care for the children, because they were productive. They'd help out with the chores in the farm. They'd be useful. They wouldn't be sitting at home, with these video games just killing things in a dungeon. And getting rewards for it on the internet. Theoretical rewards on the internet for killing things in a dungeon. And if they're asked to do something, they take out the garbage and they say, we don't have time, we're still in a cage. In our occupation of killing dragons. So actually people had higher consciousness. And when they had higher consciousness, they could look at the world and see the sun rising, and they could actually understand that it wasn't by accident that the sun came up in the morning and came down exactly in time. They understand that there was an intelligent person behind the whole thing. They'd marvel how they could eat food, and without any idea on their part, they could see it was being digested, it was being assimilated, the unnecessary parts were being eliminated. How wonderful this machine we're in, this body. Who can manufacture a machine like this? If the scientists could manufacture a male machine and a female machine, wouldn't that be nice? Like for instance, if the scientists can make a male Rolls Royce and a female Rolls Royce, and when they got together they made little Rolls Royces, then everyone could get a Rolls Royce. You just feed it a little oil and a little gas, and it grew up, and everyone would get a Rolls Royce. Very expensive. But which scientist can make such a machine? There are no scientists who can make a male Rolls Royce and a female Rolls Royce. But there is a scientist who's made them. And that's Krishna. He's made them in 8,400,000 species of life. And when they get together, they make little machines. Little human machines, little cat machines, little dog machines, little insect machines. And when they get fed, they grow up and they become big machines, and they make other machines. So who's the best scientist? That's we're presenting Krishna as the best scientist. If the scientist can make a machine that you fed it grass one end, and at the other end you get milk, wouldn't that be a nice machine? Wouldn't everyone buy a machine like that? Because maybe it made ice cream or coconut milk. Nowadays, milk is a bad reputation, so at least it made coconut milk. People would think, oh, that's healthy at least. So, but say cow's milk, say acceptable there to say cow's milk could be healthy, could be a food. So you put grass on one end, and the other end comes milk. Wouldn't that be a nice machine? Is there any scientist who's made such a machine? But there is someone who's made such a machine. And that machine is called a cow. You put grass on one end, and the other end comes milk. But do they give the cow a Nobel Prize for chemistry? No. They don't appreciate the wonderful work, the marvel of the cow. Even they don't appreciate, even ladies can do that too. That's considered, they think, oh, this is too natural. Let's give them artificial milk. That way they grow up and they prepare themselves to become machines in the future. Then nowadays, people don't like the idea that they say, well, in the future, don't worry about what you're eating, what you're doing, your health, because we'll substitute everything in your body. We'll give you a substitute arms, we'll give you a substitute legs, we'll give you a substitute liver, we'll give you a substitute heart, and eventually we'll give you a substitute brain. So our philosophy is to make things complicated is not actually progress. That we should be careful. Just like there was one, what time is it now?
We have to finish about now.
Okay, just one more story. There was one Brahmin, the one saintly person who was living in India. And he only had a pair of underwear because he was always meditating on Krishna. He was always chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. And he was very happy doing that. But one day when he was drying his underwear on the bank, at that time a mouse came and took his underwear away. So you can imagine how embarrassed he was. He had no underwear. So he did some research, and he found out that the only thing that would protect his underwear from mice was a cat. So he went to the village, and he begged a cat. But then the cat started to make all these strange sounds which he didn't understand. So he got an interpreter who knew cat language, and he was informed that the cat needed milk. But he didn't know where milk came from, so he had to do some research. He found it came from a cow. So now he got a cow. One of his friends had a cow, so now he had a cow and a cat to protect his underwear. But the cow he wasn't a very technically savvy, saintly person, so he didn't know how to milk a cow. But he found out there was one lady who actually was very experienced in milking cows, so he married her. So now he had a wife and a cow and a cat to protect his underwear. But she wanted some children, so he had to get a house. So now he had a house, a wife, 2 children, a cow and a cat to protect his underwear. But in order to pay for the house, he had to get a job. So he was working most of the time now. But to go to the job, you had to get a cow. So I had to work at night. So now I had 2 jobs, and a car, and a house, a wife, and 2 children, a cow, and a cat to protect his underwear. But he realized things were getting too complicated, and in the future he would not be able to maintain his underwear. It was too expensive. And he couldn't take out a loan from the bank because he was already up to his neck in loans. So the only thing he'd do is he threw his underwear away and walked away. So modern society has become so complicated that the simple things like when Krishna explains that our body is changing but we're not changing, it's very complicated because our minds are so much absorbed in so much anxiety, so many different things we have to worry about, so many different things in the past and the future, that it's very hard for us to accept. I'm eternal? That's impossible. Then I'd be happy if I was eternal, but I'm miserable. I have so many things to worry about. And previously, when people didn't have so many things to worry about, they could actually hear with a peaceful mind and understand things much more easily. And now it's become very difficult. To understand something simple, you need common sense. But common sense in this age is very uncommon. So our philosophy is by this chanting of Hare Krishna and by following these principles that we have, our minds will become more peaceful and we'll actually be able to understand things more clearly. So I'll stop there. And if we can't do anything else, well, we recommend buy the Bhagavad Gita, because whatever I said is in here. I didn't make anything up. I hope not. And chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Because that's what's recommended in this age, to purify our minds so we can actually understand things in such ways that we'll be happy and blissful. That's what we're advertising. That this knowledge that we're giving is revealed when our minds are pure, when they're peaceful, and then we become happy. There's no other way of becoming happy. So thank you for listening. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for coming. We'd like to thank His Holiness Prahaladananda Swami for his enlightening discourse, traveling all the way from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. It's a fact. I came from Brooklyn.
Yeah, all the way from Brooklyn.
Actually, I came from Slovenia originally.
Oh, yes, yeah. Brooklyn via Slovenia, and now Union Underground, Bambara. So we're very fortunate today to have Maharaj here, and it's a special occasion for us because just here we have Nimai Chandra, who is the son of Manigriva and Maggie, and he was born here on Hare Krishna Valley in August, just near the Goshala, very close to the cows, so very auspicious. And today, you'll know people from India, you'll know today's his first grain, so today's the first day he will eat grains. Today's ceremony, so if you can just stay for a couple of minutes, Maharaj will offer him the first grains that he will eat. He's only been eating milk for the last 6 months. Today he'll have his first grains, and if you can offer your blessings to the child will live a long and healthy and happy life, and he will milk many cows.
Give me your blessings, I
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Nimai Chandra ki Jai, Prahaladananda Swami ki Jai, Gomate ki Jai, HareKrishnaValley.com ki Jai, going back home, back to Godhead ki Jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hare Hello.